it's been a year or maybe more. My name is Sadasiva. I'm living in Berlin, Germany, and I had the great fortune of meeting Savatma more than 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, through the kindness of my wife. Was at a point in my life when I decided that I don't want to invite more guests into my home. And my wife had met Savatma and Divya in a temple community in Germany and said, "Oh, they're really, really wonderful. Let's invite them." I was like, okay, if you vouch for them, then that's fine. And this was one of the most fortunate days in my life because I was allowed to meet this wonderful Vaishnava couple. And I'm not just saying this to flatter Savatma. He knows I'm not very good at flattery, but it is very closely related to what we want to talk about today and today's class. It is something that is a topic that is very dear to me. And I hope we can together discover what the value of Vaishnava relationships is for us in our life. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this, Savatma. Should I sing Jairata Madhava quickly by myself or just go into the verse?
We usually sing for a couple of minutes if you want to do it. Otherwise, just go directly to the verse. It's your choice.
Okay. So then let me just shortly chant. It's always nice to set the mood. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada So, we are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 4, the characteristics of Rishabdev, text number 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I will read the Sanskrit once by myself and then go straight into the translation.
Can you also do verse 8 as I have it? I'm lagging a little bit. Can you do both, please?
Sure, I'll read them both. No problem.
Thank you.
So, text number 7. Brahmanyonya kutona bher vipramangala pujitaha yasya bahirshi yagyesham darshayam asur ojasa. Translation. The second prayer is this. Who is a better worshipper of Brahmanas than Maharaj Nabhi? Because he worshipped the qualified Brahmanas to their full satisfaction, the Brahmanas, by their Brahminical prowess, showed Maharaj Nabhi the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan in person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Brahmanas engaged as priests in the sacrificial ceremony were not ordinary Brahmanas. They were so powerful that they could bring forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their prayers. Thus Maharaj Nabhi was able to see the Lord face to face. Unless one is a Vaishnava, he cannot call forth the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord does not accept an invitation unless one is a Vaishnava. Therefore it is said in the Padma Purana, Satkarma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visharada, a Vaishnavo gurur nasyat Vaishnava sva pacho guru. A scholarly Brahmana expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava. These Brahmanas were certainly very expert in chanting the Vedic mantras. They were competent in the performance of the Vedic rituals, and over and above this they were Vaishnavas. Therefore, by their spiritual powers, they could call on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and enable their disciple, Maharaj Nabhi, to see the Lord face to face. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the word ojasa means by dint of devotional service. And text number 8 is, after Nabhi Maharaj departed for Badarikashram, the Supreme Lord Rishabdev understood that his kingdom was his field of activities. He therefore showed himself as an example and taught the duties of a householder by first accepting brahmacharya under the direction of spiritual masters. He also went to live at the spiritual master's place, Gurukul. After his education was finished, he gave gifts, Guru Dakshina, to his spiritual masters and then accepted the life of a householder. He took a wife named Jayanti and begot 100 sons who were as powerful and qualified as he himself. His wife Jayanti had been offered to him by Indra, the king of heaven. Rishabdev and Jayanti performed householder life in an exemplary way, carrying out ritualistic activities ordained by the Shruti and Smriti Shastra. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishabdev had nothing to do with material affairs. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. The purpose of an incarnation is to liberate his devotees and to stop the demoniac activities of non-devotees. These are the two functions of the Supreme Lord when he incarnates. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that in order to preach, one must live a practical life and show people how to do things. Apani achari bhakti sikaimu sabare. One cannot teach others unless he behaves the same way himself. Rishabdev was an ideal king and he took his education in the Gurukul although he was already educated because the Supreme Lord is omniscient. Although Rishabdev had nothing to learn from Gurukul, he went there just to teach the people in general how to take an education from the right source, from Vedic teachers. He then entered householder life and lived according to the principles of Vedic knowledge, Shruti and Smriti. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-10, Srila Rupa Goswami, quoting the Skanda Purana, states, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatanaiva Kalpate. Human society must follow the instructions received from Shruti and Smriti Vedic literature. Practically applied in life, this is worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Pancharatrika Vidi. Every human being must advance his spiritual life and at the end return home back to Godhead. Maharaj Rishabdev strictly followed all these principles. He remained an ideal grihasta and taught his sons how to become perfect in spiritual life. These are some examples of how he ruled the earth and completed his mission as an incarnation. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashkita Dishatarine Vancha Kalpadarupyascha Kripa Sintube Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's always a little bit challenging when you are asked to give a class for people that you do not know. So it's a little difficult to understand what the topics are that are relevant, and even more challenging this task becomes when one is not physically present. I think it is wonderful that nowadays we can connect to each other virtually, but at least from my side, it is a bit challenging when I don't see your faces while I speak. So I don't really know if I connect to you or if what I say has any meaning or any relevance for you. So therefore, let me request you, if you can, and if it is convenient to you, please turn on your cameras so we can see each other. I know for myself, sometimes this is not convenient. For you, it's early in the morning. You might be in a place where you don't want to switch the camera on, but if you can, please be so kind and do so to make my job a little easier in trying to speak something that is meaningful to you. Thank you. Let me see, there has been something going on in the chat. Okay, it's the references to the verses quoted. All right. So, while preparing for this class, I was thinking there are always several layers to understanding Srimad Bhagavatam. The obvious layer, or one could almost say the immediate layer, is that of the lila, of the pastime being presented in the descriptions of the Bhagavatam. And here we hear the second prayer being composed by the sages who had met Maharaj Nabi and who glorify him and his devotional service. And they were glorifying him by pointing out that he was acting and behaving like a true devotee. And what that means in this regard is that he was worshipping the qualified brahmanas to the full satisfaction of those brahmanas, and that through this worship, he was blessed by the brahmanas to meet the personality of Godhead in person. And of course, this is something quite extraordinary. And because it is extraordinary, it is appearing in the narrations of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But there's, in my experience from reading the Bhagavatam, there's always at least one more obvious layer. There are many, of course, many layers, and I'm far from being qualified to unravel all of them. But there is another layer that I always try to understand, and that is, what is the relevance of this in my own spiritual practice, in my own spiritual life, and in my own personal experience of life as trying to be a devotee. And I realized that trying to answer those questions for myself while reading the Bhagavatam really adds a very, very important aspect to studying the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, it is so easy to just stay on the surface and understand those pastimes intellectually, maybe emotionally, to some degree, maybe even spiritually, but not being able to fully connect to them. And there are parts in the Bhagavatam that seem quite remote to our personal life experience, to be very honest. Especially narrations of great kings, great sages, great rishis that lived millennia and millennia and millennia ago, whose life experience is so very different from ours in some regards, of course very similar in other regards as well. But one could ask, why is it important for me, as somebody trying to be a devotee, to hear about somebody like Maharaj Nabi? So the beauty here is that every description we find in the Bhagavatam is there for us to get an inspiration of how we could improve our spiritual life, our devotional service, and therefore also improve our spiritual experience in life. And the great example we are getting here from the life of Maharaj Nabi is that he, with full faith and full conviction and devotion, was taking refuge, was taking shelter in qualified brahmanas, first and foremost for one could consider a material desire. He wanted to get a child, but he did not just want to get any child. His desire was to get a child that was as good as Vishnu. And as we heard in the previous chapter, Vishnu understood there is no one who is as good as me, so I better come myself. And therefore he decided to incarnate himself in the form of Rishabdev and take birth in the family of Maharaj Navi. So how did Maharaj Navi get this blessing? We hear in this verse it came about through him worshipping the qualified brahmanas. And Prabhupada, going alongside the commentaries of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is pointing out that the true qualified brahmana means to be a Vaishnava, and that this Brahminical distinction or classification has nothing to do with one's birth, but with one's qualification through action and through behavior. And therefore he also quotes the Padma Purana, saying that it doesn't matter where you're born, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your cultural background is, your racial background, or anything else really. But if you are somebody who is surrendered to Krishna and is expert, as it is said here, in the subject of Vedic knowledge, meaning understanding the true nature of the Lord, the true nature of the soul, and connection of those two, then one is qualified to become a spiritual master or being a true Vaishnava. So this verse does not just glorify Maharaj Nabi as a disciple, but it also glorifies his gurus, one could say, in this regard, his spiritual masters, the qualified brahmanas, because it is said that through their qualification they were able to make the Lord appear in the life of their disciple Maharaj Nabi. So this is something very, very, I think, crucial for us to understand, that if we want to have an experience of Krishna in our life, we need the guidance, the support, the blessings, and ultimately the help of the qualified Vaishnavas, of the spiritual masters, who through their devotional service, as Prabhupada quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur at the end of the purport, through their devotional service are able to invite the Lord into our presence. So Krishna appears where his devotees congregate and chant his glories. And this is what we find here described in this verse and in this purport, that the devotee, the Vaishnava, is interested in blessing everyone around themselves by bringing the Lord into the presence of people's lives. So it is, if we somehow or other manage to connect ourselves to a devotee, to a true Vaishnava who really is performing devotional service, we might also be blessed by experiencing Krishna in one way or another in our life. And the experience that Maharaj Nabi had certainly was very extraordinary, because he did not just understand intellectually what Krishna is or who Vishnu is, or he did not have some kind of impersonal revelation, but it is said that he got to see Narayan in person. And now we could ask ourselves, well, have I seen Narayan, Krishna, or any other form of Krishna in person in my life? I certainly haven't. I don't know if some of you have. So now the question then is, well, is it because I'm not connected to a proper Vaishnava somehow or another who does not have those powers described here? Or does it have to do something with me? And this is, I think, where the second verse comes in that we were reading today. That we ourselves have to live in a life that is exemplary, and we ourselves have to do something to qualify ourselves as disciples of devotees, of spiritual masters, so that our life is really a life of preparation, not in a sense that how sometimes we use this phrase, a life of preparation, that we are just working towards the moment of death, and that hopefully at that moment we remember Krishna, but rather that our life is a life of preparation on a second to second basis, minute to minute basis, hour to hour basis, day to day basis. That we are trying to qualify ourselves to perceive Krishna, to see Krishna in our lives through the blessings of the spiritual master and through our devotional service and our own glorification and service to the spiritual master. This is the kind of preparation that we should be doing every day, all day long, preparing ourselves to realize Krishna's presence in our lives. Because spiritual life becomes very, very dry and technical and theoretical and ultimately impossible to continue if we do not have an experience of Krishna in one way or another in our lives. And Krishna can appear in very extraordinary ways in our lives, and I think we all did make extraordinary experiences in our lives, otherwise we wouldn't congregate here in this way or any other way. Some experience that was so otherworldly or out of this world that made us really stop and think, this is something unique. Krishna consciousness, the practice of devotional service, is something that is fundamentally, characteristically different than anything else that I've experienced so far in my life. So I have to investigate this more. I have to try to experience this further and deeper. There are those experiences, but then there are also let's say, the ordinary experiences. And Krishna can appear in quite ordinary ways in our lives. But because they're ordinary, we often tend to overlook them because we don't prepare ourselves to see Krishna, to perceive Krishna in those ordinary moments in our lives. And what could they be? If we would be sitting physically present together now, I would make this into a little workshop because I like to give interactive classes, but I think this might be a bit difficult today in this virtual setting. So I would just ask you to think, where do you perceive Krishna's presence in your life, in everyday dealings, in ordinary things? Where could that be? Could it be while you're brushing your teeth in the morning, looking in the mirror? Could it be while you're chanting your japa, hopefully? Could it be while we're discussing the Bhagavatam? Yes, those are practices where we should be able to perceive Krishna because they are very much geared towards having a spiritual experience, right? Reading the Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name, eating prasadam. But do we really experience Krishna in those activities? Maybe, maybe not. For you working with the cows, do you experience Krishna when you tend to the cows, when you're working the fields, when you go about your daily lives, your jobs, when you talk to other people? Do we experience Krishna's presence in those encounters we have all day long? We can, and that is the beauty. We can experience Krishna in these exchanges, in those experiences. Krishna is there with us at all times. Devamrita Swami once told me that now that you joined the Hare Krishna movement, it was a long time ago when I was a young brahmachari, he said, now that you joined the Hare Krishna movement, you will never be alone again. You will never just meet a single person again. You always be at least in a threesome. There will always be three people in every interaction. It's you, the other person, and Krishna, no matter whom you're meeting. Krishna is always there. But so often we don't experience Krishna. We don't see Krishna in what we do, even if it is a spiritual practice that we perform. So the question is, how can we prepare ourselves? What can we do to be able to feel more connection to Krishna throughout what we're doing? What can we do? Can we just wake up earlier, eat more or eat less, sleep more or sleep less, chant more or chant less? Is it a question of quantity in what we do? Or is it rather a question of quality in what we do? And I think the answer here is obvious. It very much depends on the quality of what we do throughout our day, throughout our life. If we try to develop the qualities of a devotee, and really those very basic qualities, meaning developing taste in the holy name, serving the Vaishnavas, and being kind and merciful to all living beings, those three core definitions of a Vaishnava, then we are preparing our hearts and opening our hearts so that we do perceive the spiritual reality that is hiding behind the material nature that surrounds us at all times. I asked once the late Kadamba Kanana Maharaj if there's any mysticism in Krishna consciousness, because it seems that we have an explanation for everything and anything, isn't it? A discussion with a Vaishnava can sometimes be, or with a devotee can sometimes be very frustrating, because no matter what you ask somebody, there's always an explanation. I've realized that often Sunday feast guests, they leave quite frustrated, exhilarated, but also frustrated, because no matter what kind of question they manage to come up with, there's always an answer to everything. So if we have an answer to everything, is there anything that is being left unsaid or not answered? Is there something that we cannot just logically and intellectually answer? And I asked this Maharaj, I said, it seems that there is no mystery in Krishna consciousness, that everything is so intellectually clearly cut out and so logical, but that also tends to make it a little boring. You always know what to expect. And he said, oh, how can you think that there is no mystery in Krishna consciousness? He said, just think that everything you see, behind everything that you see, there's a completely different reality hiding just behind a thin veil of material energy. And that in that other reality, the spiritual reality, Krishna is ruling supreme and is continuously present. And he said, we are continuously, always, at all times surrounded by this spiritual reality, by the spiritual dimension, but we are just unable to perceive it. So the question really is, how do we pierce, or how do we open this veil of material energy that surrounds us, so that we can perceive this other reality that we are actually living in, the spiritual reality. So by serving the devotees, by developing taste in the holy name, and by showing kindness and having a soft heart, an open heart to the existence of other living beings, we can actually soften our hearts and open our hearts, and in that way open our spiritual eyes and perceive this other spiritual dimension, and therefore start to become able to perceive Krishna in our lives, in the exchanges that we have. It's like we are experiencing here rain now in Berlin for several days. It's like stepping out into the rain and just choosing to close the umbrella and choosing to get a little wet. We tend to open the umbrella of the false ego and protect ourselves from anything and everything, trying to maintain our own conception and our own understanding of things. But when we give up a little bit this mentality and are ready to be challenged in our view of the world, and be ready to look for the spiritual dimension in things, and for the higher arrangement that is being made for us to make certain experiences, and have gratitude for what we are experiencing, trying to see what happens to us as an opportunity to learn and grow in our Krishna consciousness. At that point, we actually start to perceive Krishna as a very active, or who is actively involved in our lives, and we start to perceive Krishna in what is happening. I myself see this opportunity here today as something like this. To be honest with you, I haven't given a class in probably 6 months. As you might hear through my headset in the background, I'm not sure, but you might hear a small child screaming. I have a son, he's now 10 months old, and I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm working, and for a short time ago, I was a temple president, and I just had so many things to do. And since the child is there, I was not able to participate in the regular temple program very often, and also was not able to give as many classes as I used to. So when Savatma contacted me, my first reaction was, oh, how do I get out of this? What excuse can I come up with to not do this here today? But then I thought, no, actually, this is Krishna calling out. You know, Krishna, I'm trying to shy away from an opportunity for service, and Krishna is reaching out and calling out and saying, "Hey, Sadasiva, come here. Let's associate with the devotees. I give you an opportunity to read the Bhagavatam and think about me a little more." That's another way of looking at it, not as some challenge or something that I should do, but as a gift that I'm receiving from Krishna here today. As Bhakti Chaitanya Swami always says, the person benefiting most from giving a class is the person giving the class. So I'm very grateful for having this opportunity here today, because I got to think a little bit more about Krishna than I would have done otherwise. And I'm able to share those thoughts with you. So we could think now, oh, this all sounds good and nice, but it's all a bit vague and a bit maybe even esoteric or sentimental. And what in the second purport that we were reading today, one sentence struck me very much. Originally, I was preparing for the text number 8, and I was thinking, "Ooh, this is going to be a challenge for me, because nothing much resonates there that I feel I can talk about." But there was one sentence that really stuck out from Prabhupada's purport, that I found very, very interesting, and that is, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that in order to preach, one must live a practical life and show people how to do things. And I think this gives our whole understanding of how Prabhupada wanted us to be as devotees, a very, very clear direction. And we see this consistently in how Prabhupada was training his disciples and is still training us through his books and his instructions, that doing all this, trying to be more aware of Krishna, is not just something that happens in our head. It's not just something that is wishful thinking, or just something where we just want to perceive magic in the world. It is something very practical. And it actually goes alongside the core qualities of a devotee. Serving other Vaishnavas is not just something that we imagine we will do one day. It's something that we can do very practically. And serving a devotee means very practical, can mean very, very practical and simple things. And living in a community, as all of you do, gives you so much opportunity of serving Vaishnavas. And those things can be very simple. Can be giving somebody a smile in the morning and saying, I'm very happy to see you. I'm very grateful for being in your association. May I serve you a plate of prasada? Or if an elderly Vaishnava needs some help, may I help you? If a mother with a child is struggling with carrying her bags, carry the bags. All this is Vaishnava Seva. And if it is not Vaishnava Seva, because we don't think those people that we deal with are devotees, because they might be guests or might not wear a tilak or not wear a dhoti, we should still do those things anyway, because then what we practice is jiva daya. We are kind to other living souls. So there is no way out for a devotee of interacting kindly and compassionately and actively with other living beings. It's really just a question of perspective. Am I practicing jiva daya, or am I practicing Vaishnava Seva? So is the distinction on the outside or on the inside? What do you think? This distinction between Jiva Daya and Vaishnava Seva, where does that happen? If I don't see the tilak properly straightened on somebody's forehead, can I then say, oh, to this one I just give Jiva Daya? But if he wears the right clothes and has the right haircut, then I can perform Vaishnava Seva. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite radical in that sense. When the devotees from Navadvip went to visit him in Jagannath Puri, they came there with a question burning in their minds. They came and they asked him, Mahaprabhu, who is a devotee? Who is a Vaishnava? And Mahaprabhu completely stunned them with his answer. And he said, anyone who chants the holy name of the Lord just one time is to be considered a Vaishnava. They were all blown away. They were so blown away that a year later, when they came back, they asked him the same question again, because they just couldn't wrap their heads around. And that time he said, well, everybody who's practicing the principles of devotional service, he is to be considered a Vaishnava. So already a little bit more qualified answer. But obviously they were looking for some other type of information, because the third year in a row they asked him the same question. At that time he gave the answer, somebody who chants the name without offense, who is always absorbed in the holy name 24 hours a day, he is to be considered a devotee. So are those three answers, are they in conflict with each other? No. The Acharyas explain that Mahaprabhu, through those three answers, was explaining the different kinds of devotees that we find, the Kanishta, the Madhyam, and the Uttamadhikari, but nonetheless he classified them all together as devotees. He did not say, well, he's kind of a devotee. He's kind of a Vaishnava. He's a lesser Vaishnava. No, every time he said, this is a Vaishnava. So in that way also we can improve our own way of dealing with other people by trying to see everybody as a servant of the Lord. Maybe not the most qualified or the most absorbed. Certainly most of us are not, sorry to say. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are who we are. But still we can try to see everybody also as somebody trying to serve the Lord in one way or another. And giving ourselves the chance to associate with other people on a deeper spiritual level than just us from a high horse of spirituality being kind and merciful to others. But really being humble and thinking, oh, this person, he's a very nice person. He has some interest in Krishna. He's trying to live by good moral standards. He's trying his best. She's trying her best through whatever struggles each one of us experiences. So they're also trying to serve Krishna, knowingly or unknowingly. So let me try to help them as well. Let me try to serve them as well. And in that way we will advance ourselves by trying to develop this kind of mentality. Savatma asked me to speak for 90 minutes, and I told him my regular fee only covers 40 minutes. We have hit the 41-minute mark. And to be honest, this is what I wanted to share with you today. To summarize, that we should try to look for the extraordinary, but also for the ordinary experiences of Krishna in our life. And we can do so by preparing ourselves all day long, every day, through the chanting of the holy name, through serving the Vaishnavas, and through being kind to all living beings. And in that way, trying to perceive Krishna's involvement in every interaction that we have, and really receiving the gifts that Krishna is offering us, seeing every experience we make as an opportunity to grow and advance in our spiritual life, an opportunity that is personally presented to us by Krishna, tailor-made to our own needs and experiences. And that at the same time we should be practical in what we do and how we do it. That it does not have to be something vague or something imagined or sentimental, but that we should be practical in our spiritual lives and see what the needs of the other people are, and try to serve them in that capacity. Maybe you have some questions or comments at this point.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
It seems like after that, but in some ways, we all have some taste for Krishna consciousness, as after years, we are still practicing Krishna consciousness, so there must be some taste. Although you were asking about if there's any mystery in Krishna consciousness, I'd say yes, that I'm still a devotee. I think that remains a mystery. But as far as how we're going to maintain this, just right now, well, I can say I'm living on fumes of my previous service. It's not because I'm still enthusiastic and new, and I want to save the world, and I want to distribute thousands of books, and I want to preach to everybody, etc., etc. Yeah, I may have the desire still, but it's kind of very vague. And if I am not fully established and having the darshan of Krishna by now, what's the hope that I will maintain the enthusiasm, the patience, the determination, and the taste that in 20, 30, 40 years, I don't think I'm going to live that long, but still, this paradigm shift, that I will actually see Krishna everywhere, and I will see Krishna in my life, as you were suggesting we do, will happen. That is it going to be 10, 20 more years of struggling, and how do one maintain ourselves and increases? It's just because maintaining, okay, somehow or other, I've been doing it for so long, I can do it in automatic, I can do it with my eyes closed. But how can we shift it and do the right thing and actually practice real Krishna consciousness, where you and Krishna are intimately connected and secure and in a constant way?
Thank you, Savatma. That's a very good and important question. Sometimes it feels we stick to the devotees because it's scary to do anything else, right? Or what else could we do? And it becomes like an automatic response. Okay, I get up, I go to the morning program, I go to the Sunday feast, I chant my rounds, and we are completely on autopilot. As you said, we are maintaining things with our eyes closed, but there is no real life in any of it. And I think the antidote to this kind of robotic Krishna consciousness is exactly what we were hearing about today. We have sometimes the expectation that any experience of Krishna has to be extraordinary, has to be a miracle just performed for us, has to be something mystical. But it doesn't have to be. Krishna can appear in the most ordinary ways. So for me, the question really is, how do I become aware of those ordinary ways Krishna is appearing for me? And what works for me is, for example, contemplation, to just sit down and have it's a little bit used up nowadays, but a gratitude journal, for example. And with a specific aim, I sit down and I think, where did I feel a connection to Krishna today? Where did I perceive Krishna's hand in my life today, somehow or another? And I don't stop thinking about it until I find something, because I know that it's there. It's just me being in Maya, not being able to perceive Krishna's hand in my life every single day in one way or another. And this is something, I know that it happens. This is something, as you say, if you feel like running on fumes, I know the experience and I share your experience. I realized this when I was a young devotee on Sankirtan. I realized that at every moment in my day, Krishna was personally present. And then at some point I realized when I was not on Sankirtan anymore, he was still there. And when I moved out of the temple, he was still there. And when I stopped being in the association of Vaishnavas 24/7, he was still there. And when I started to have a family and have a job and go to university, he was still there. So Krishna does not leave us alone ever, if we want it or not. And that's a beautiful thing. But the question is, are we able to see this? So what we can do practically is find ways for us where we can make those, find ways for us how we become aware of those experiences. Because we make the experience, but we don't know what's happening to us. I read an interesting thing today. Lately, I've been reading some books by a Christian priest from the United States. His name is Richard Rohr. And I read a quote by him today in the morning. He said, "The ego hates losing at all times, even to God." So our ego, our false ego is so stuck that it just does not allow us to perceive anything beyond it. We think we are in control. We think we are in charge. We control our fate and our destiny. We control our experiences. But it's not the case. But we hate losing. We hate losing control, and we hate losing control to Krishna as well. And this is what experiencing Krishna in ordinary and extraordinary ways usually means: understanding we are not in control. I'm not the one in charge. I'm not the one making things happen. But I'm the one being able to play along with Krishna's plan. Trying to think about this, trying to meditate about this. It's also a beautiful meditation during japa, for example. Thinking, okay, Krishna, where are you? How do I see you today? Where will I find you? Are you here right now with me? I don't feel it. I don't feel Krishna dancing on my tongue, dancing in my heart, tingling in my ears. It's very automatic, robotic at most times. Why? Because I lack the self-awareness. I lack consciousness. There's been this quote being attributed to Prabhupada, and I've heard this 1,008 times, and I'm not sure if he actually said it, but it makes sense nonetheless. Before we become Krishna conscious, we have to become conscious. So often we are unconscious almost. We walk through our lives without real consciousness, meaning without proper awareness of what is going on. So trying to add something to our spiritual practice that deals with this awakening or this becoming more aware, becoming more conscious, and then directing this consciousness, being more conscious towards seeing, okay, where did I have a connection with Krishna today? Maybe I chanted a nice round today and I really felt Krishna's presence. Maybe a devotee said something to me that really struck me or stuck with me or made me think in a certain way. Maybe somehow Krishna gave me a gift today. Somebody came along and said, Prabhu, something for you. Maybe I went to the darshan and I really felt that Krishna is looking back at me. That's the meaning of darshan, by the way. It's not just us looking at Krishna, it's also Krishna looking at us. But how often has it happened to you that you went for darshan and somebody asked you afterwards, so how does Krishna look? And you're not sure because all you were looking at were the flower arrangements. Have we really looked at Krishna with open eyes and open hearts, and therefore allowing Krishna to see us as who we are? We have so many opportunities to find Krishna's involvement in our life throughout the day, but we have to make an effort to wake up to that, to become aware of it. So that would be my answer. It's not something that will happen on its own. And if we don't make an endeavor, we will continue being in this modus operandi of being a Vaishnava robot, following all the external rules and regulations, following everything that is being expected of us, but in our heart being not really present. That's easy. The mind knows how to do this. It's one of the basic functions of the mind to just zone out when something is repetitive. We all experience this while chanting in a small way, but in a large way, we do that. It can happen to us for our entire life because we do the same things over and over again, and we just become unaware, unconscious, and we are not present. So finding ways of what works to become more present and directing this presence of mind, this awareness, this consciousness of trying to discover where Krishna is today, right now. That can help us. And in this way, we don't have to keep waiting for the miracle to happen. We can become aware of that we are living in a spiritual reality, not in a material reality. Does that answer your question, Sabatma? You don't look convinced.
Oh no. I look the way I look, and due to genetic inbreeding. This has nothing to do with your answer. I was, matter of fact, thinking of the example of reading a book, and particularly some of Prabhupada's books or some philosophy book, where you just overread something and you have to go back and reread it and maybe read it a few times so you actually can understand it, can digest it, can analyze it, assimilate it. So this seems like this is very much applicable to our lives, that we live through repetition and routine without properly understanding what is happening as it is happening. So just like when Thoreau said, the masses live lives of quiet desperation. This is due to not thinking about it, because if you think about something, you can change it. Whereas if you just don't think about it, there's no need to do that. No, it was a very appropriate answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else has a question or comment or disagrees?
Hare Krishna, Sadasiva Prabhu. Thank you
Hare
for your
Krishna.
comments. I just wanted to say, whenever I heard the crying baby in the back, that's where I saw Krishna in my life, reminding me to cry out while chanting.
Wonderful. I'll let him know. He'll be happy to have served you. All right. There's nothing else.
Well, it's usually there are sometimes there are questions, but we are actually going through a retreat right now of 150 people that came to experience Krishna consciousness in Gita Nagari. So the Buddhists are a bit overworked and underslept. So,
but
not
there's
really
exactly the opportunity. What do you do now? Do you work? Do you do Jiva Doya? Or do you do Vaishnava Seva for those people attending the retreat? And it's just a question. It's just a question of what's going on up here.
Yes, agreed. I think Jagannath Pandit Prabhu has a question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted to say thank you for the class. Very wonderful realizations and, very practical. And I was thinking that how Krishna shows up. Last night I was at a program that Sarvatma was chanting at. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and he was asking a lot of questions, and I was answering some. And then he said something which was very curious, which I'm still meditating on. He said, yeah, there's a reason that we're meeting each other. There's a reason that Krishna, brought us here. There's a real meaning for it. And so I'm still meditating on that because of some of the other things he said too. But something you said in class really struck me too. That made me think, it was the reminder about Lord Chaitanya saying what a devotee is. And it's one that just says his name even once, Krishna. And that struck me because I have a family that's my birth family is very fundamentalist Christian, and my father's a pastor, and so on. And so we have this connection, way we can connect visually, Marco Polo. And so I was thinking, it's such an austerity to kind of just try to connect in some ways. But the other day I heard two of my family members just say Krishna 3 times on the site because I have a cousin named Krishna, So I was appreciating that. Wow, I need to see them as devotees. They may not see themselves as devotees, but it's actually more important for me to see them as they actually are rather than how they present themselves. So thank you for your wonderful class. So many nice realizations.
Thank you, Prabhu. And you just made a very important remark, which for me, in my mind, opens up a whole nother can of worms. Are we happy as members of the Hare Krishna movement to make distinctions when we look at the world of categorizing people? These belong to my group, to my tribe, and others belong to another group and another tribe, and therefore I should behave towards them differently? Or do we try to really implement into our spiritual lives I think one of the most challenging things and the most fundamental things and one of the most things that Prabhupada repeated the most, being Krishna consciousness is not a religion, it is a science. I was thinking about this today in the morning. my current state of understanding this is really that this is the base premise for us as members of the Hare Krishna movement to not see ourselves as just members of a cultural group, of a religious group, of just a group of like-minded people, because then it would not be a science. What does it mean that something is a science, that it is the same for everyone? There is the same possibility of making the same experiences for anyone and everyone if they follow the same set of rules in a scientific setting. And Prabhupada was quite adamant on that. So, without trying to be critical of anybody in our movement, I think it's just something that we should spend more time thinking about. What does it really mean that what we do, what we practice, is not a religion, it is a science? And what does it mean for our outlook at the world? Because what happens for us psychologically is that we create an identity. I'm a devotee, I'm a Vaishnava, I'm a Hare Krishna. And most of the times we create these identities not in a positive way by really understanding who am I, but in a negative way by first of all understanding who am I not. I'm not an American anymore. I'm not a Westerner. I'm not a man. I'm not a woman. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a whatever. I'm not a meat eater. And what is left in the middle between all those things that I'm not, that must be who I am, the devotee, the Hare Krishna, the whatever. But when my identity is constructed just through negatives, just through creating borders through whatever else is out there and that I'm not, then I'm very fragile. I don't have a strong core. I don't have a real identity. And I'm getting threatened immediately by anything and everything that tries to invade this, that looks different, feels different, tastes different, talks different. And then I'm just like every other member of a sect, a culture group, a fan club, a religion, whatever I want to use as an example here, because they all do the same thing. It's a materialistic understanding of identity. But when we try to understand that what I'm doing is scientific, that means I'm actually not a religious person per se, but I'm a scientist. I'm a spiritual scientist. I'm an eternal soul trying to discover through trial and error and following in the experiments set out by the previous teachers and acharyas, trying to make the same experiments and recreating those same experiences. And it doesn't matter which group I belong to, what language I use, what distinctions I use, how I call God, by what name, or if I have a name for him or not. This is available and accessible to anyone and everyone in that way. And we find the overlap to the same understanding everywhere else in the world. So thank you, Prabhu, for pointing this out, that this is how we should perceive anyone and everyone who chants the holy name once. Do we think the holy name only is Krishna or Vishnu? Or do we understand that the holy name is whatever that person's name for God is? That is the holy name. And then we become able to really interact with the world as a Vaishnava, understanding that we are surrounded by souls, eternal souls, trying to find their way back home, back to Godhead, in whatever that entails for anyone individually. And we are able to interact with them as a true Vaishnava in the truest meaning. So thank you for pointing that out.
If I may add just one little tidbit that changed my outlook many years ago as I was distributing books as my day-to-day activity, is that I heard in a lecture that we're all devotees of Krishna. So it's even one step removed from someone chanting Hare Krishna, that everyone, every living entity in whatever shape, whether it's animal or mineral, not mineral, some minerals maybe, and human, they are actually devotees of Krishna. So I am meeting my own family. I'm actually meeting spiritual souls, devotees of Krishna. Why would I tell them about Krishna consciousness unless they're devotees? If they weren't devotees, I'm trying to convince them of something that is not theirs. So why am I doing this? Who is benefiting by it? But because everybody's a devotee, then everybody will benefit, myself included, if I tell them about Krishna. So yes, even before somebody chants Hare Krishna, we should see them as they're devotees. They're just in the different degrees of forgetfulness.
Yes, and I have the strong desire to challenge you now, Savatma.
By all means.
Even if they never chant Hare Krishna, but if they call out to God in whatever way makes sense to them, that fits as well. I used to have the same, or I don't want to presume that I understand what's going on in your heart, but I used to have the understanding of what you just said, that everybody is a Hare Krishna. They just don't know it yet. But eventually this, for me, changed into the understanding that everybody is a eternal part and parcel of Krishna, who is present for everyone equally in the world through whatever way makes sense to people. And in that way, everybody is a devotee of God, not a devotee as a sense that a member of the Hare Krishna movement. It's really the question of developing a broader understanding, which I know you have, Savatma, but just wanted to clarify this for myself.
Yes, I'm not, of course, being, how can you say, if you have a well-developed palate, you want to convince everybody to, eat better, more nutritious, more appetizing things. But some people don't, they get the same nourishment or similar nourishment and they have a metabolism that they can digest anything. So, what's the point in changing it? And somebody asked me the other day, is your religion the only way? It's not the first time I hear this. I said, no, it's not the only way. It's not the only way, but it's a very fast and comfortable ride. And so I'm going with that. And unless you show me something else that is as fast and as comfortable and as detailed, because if you want to understand God, if you want to follow a process that will actually give you taste from the very beginning and knowledge right away, Krishna consciousness provides a very good, secure way to do that. Whereas other processes are a little more nebulous, slower. I don't have that much time, so I would like to wrap that business and not have to wait for the result. It's like you take a blood test, but the result will come in 5 years. Things may change by then. I would like to have a result online this afternoon. So this is what Krishna consciousness represents: a very comfortable, quick, effective way to understand the nature of the soul and the nature of the absolute. I give credence to all other processes, but personally, I'm not really interested.
Exactly. That's why we're here and not somewhere else right now. Exactly. And I think it's to the great, or we can eternally be grateful to the acharyas in our sampradaya for maintaining this clarity and purity, and ultimately Prabhupada making it accessible for us. because without Prabhupada's purport, most of those things wouldn't be as clear and accessible to us as they are. But we might tend to be, or to get stuck in the external cultural aspects of tradition. And Prabhupada really has the ability to move it beyond that and make it accessible for us, so that we don't feel we have to join a culture, but we can join a process of purifying our hearts and understanding who we are.
And it's like going to school, but Prabhupada already did the homework for us.
Yeah. All right.
I think there is one more question from Kaylee, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, it's not so much a question, but actually really just want to glorify and appreciate both. I can't even remember your name giving class right now. Can you remind? Sadasiva? Yeah, Sadasiva Das and Sarvatma, both of you. Sarvatma's been getting really amazing speakers for us, and Sadashiva Das, this was a really amazing class, so many beautiful points, and I really like this practicality. Like, you gave us something that we can take with us and constantly I really like this journaling thing where we can try to ask ourselves throughout the day, like, where did we see Krishna's hand? And in that moment, I was just going over all the things. It's only 8 o'clock, and so many things came to the mind, and so because it was, that's so helpful. And to write it down, that I feel like it's going to be very life-changing in spiritual practice. And then Sarvama Prabhu, this question that you asked was so beautiful. I think it's very relatable for everyone. And it was in the response, the answers, everything was just so helpful. It was very moving. So definitely something that's journaling. How I saw Krishna's hand today was this class. It was a very big one. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the great lessons I'm still learning in life, to just say thank you. So thank you. Jai Prabhupada. In the beginning, I was saying that me meeting Sarvatma is related to the topic of this class, and I just want to clarify by what I meant by that. I've been struggling with wrapping my head around I'm trying to be not too extreme in what I'm going to say now, but I've been struggling with wrapping my head around how devotees can interact with each other at times. And it has been through the real life example and the kindness and the humanity of Sarvatma that continuously and over restores my faith in the association of the devotees, and shows me what it really means to be a devotee. And there are several Vaishnavas in my life that give me this experience, and Sarvatma is one of them, and therefore I'm forever grateful to Krishna that he arranged our meeting and somehow managed to bring him in my life. And I'm holding on to his, I don't want to say his dhoti, because I know he usually doesn't wear them, but I want to hang on to his bhakta pants for as long as I can, and to Divya as well. So thank you all, and thank you for bringing me here today into your association. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Please, devotees, if you don't mind, this is our customary way to say thanks. We unmute ourselves and thank you personally. From the bottom of my heart. Matter of fact, I am just a foil that reflects. If you see any qualities in me, it's just reflecting your own qualities.
That's what I meant when I said it can be frustrating talking to devotees, because they always have an answer.
So
just
please, devotees. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. What a wonderful class. It really heartfelt thank you. I really needed it, and it was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sadasiva Prabhu. We miss you both, or all four of you, yet to meet.
Thank you, Divya. We are planning still. It's been a plan that's a long time coming, but we are planning still to see you sometime in the near future.
Yes, please come. There's lots of space for the the kids to play and lots of cows to cuddle.
They will love it.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Very practical instruction. Thank you.
Thank you so
Jai,
much.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Jai, thank you for the wonderful class.
thank you for very much, for poet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sadashiva Prabhu, I would humbly request that when you notice that Krishna appears through Sarvatma asking you to give class again, if you would please take that opportunity for our benefit as well as yours.
Thank you, Sadashiva Prabhu, for your class. I appreciate it. And thank you for giving us to your association.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I heard what I needed to hear.
Thank you. Jamba, I have to tell you, your profile picture has been very distracting to me. It's time for lunch where I live. And
I'm sorry.
no, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. It
meant
looks
to
lovely.
change
It looks lovely. You're muted, Savatma.
Okay, devotees, I'm gonna give you a little preview of coming attractions. We have the regular Bhagavatam class every day, and we will have the next guest because of retreats. I actually thin out somehow the amount of speakers that I invited for this month. So the next one will be on the 23rd, which is a Sunday. Vishvambara Prabhu from London, and then I have Sachinandan Swami on April 28th. Sadashiva Prabhu, you're invited to tune in for that class if you like. And on Saturday, there will be a regular Bhagavatam class. That's the 29th by Yashodeva Prabhu. And then Giriraj Swami is going to speak on Sita Devi at 7 p.m. same day. And then Sunday, it's a packed weekend. Chiti Shakti Prabhu, the psychiatrist from England, is going to give Bhagavatam class. So I will post it later on, but that's the preview of coming attractions. Again, Sadashiva Prabhu, thank you very much. You won't get rid of me so easily. As you probably know, I'm very persistent, like a bulldog. I won't let you go. And I will ask you again, not in a year, but less time, to give you a chance so you can shadow box from now until the day of your fight will come.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, devotees. Thank you. Thank you,
Srila
Sadashiva
Prabhupada
Prabhu.
Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Hari.
Thank you.
Snapistaya, Ubuntu, Srimati Bhakti Acharanarani Bhakti Vedant Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Iskand Unity Mandala Chai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Brahma Bhagavad Gauriya Sampradaya Acharya Vrinda ki jai. Sri Rup Sri Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopal Bhaktadass Raghunath Sarva Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nam Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की गंगामय यमुनामय की देवी तुलसी महारानी की कनागरी धाम की श्री राधा दामोदर ललित विशाखा की समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की all the awesome attendees of PMS retreat ki Nitai Go Pramanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to all of you. Think Damodar? Yeah, right. He looks like that. Yeah. You guys know. But I don't know much about Damodar. That's that much of parents. Spiritual I know that you never believe. Beautiful story, but I think you all might be hungry for breakfast. It's all this so. Yes. Put it out. Maybe before kids on today, I'll tell you the story of yes, John, how about the specialty of the yes, the specialty of this. We did it at travels every state, every corner of the United States. Captured the hearts of thousands and thousands. This song exists because of this communities. They went from every corner of the United States. These cities literally captured people's hearts. That's no exaggeration. Yes. Actual facts. This is the serious. Yeah, that's a rather dumb request. You understand what he's saying? You ask him about the rather dumb request. Yeah, from which not now. They're well known to take the beautiful roads of love and really close. That's what I want. You all want, right? Yeah, you guys. Thank you. she felt special when she's got them. So nice to meet me a lot. Yeah, you guys forgot about that. I just forgot about me. Garden. Okay, okay. Bro, she's calling. She's in Yoga, but she's calling. I don't know. Sharing go. Yeah. Hello? I get a connection. Okay, I'm going to parent here. Yes. Combinations of colors. Follow. Honey. You should start to plan. Okay, let's see how severe that you should collect some candidates on. Yes. Special moment. Ang sa na holiday na sponsor kayo ng registration. Tama na siya. Mas decoration na abra o kaya ba no abra ba wala lang para mag abra beta na
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare.